So, my stepmom tried to ruin my life. My father was very ill, and she tried to paint me in a very bad light to him, trying to get me kicked out of the family house so, you guessed it, she could steal everything. Well, it turns out she has something that she's been hiding, and I discovered what it was. Hello, I'm Jane. 23, female. I'm writing here because the little girl inside me wants to vent about her evil stepmom. A lot of you probably have step-parents, and I think acceptance is a very important but difficult part of having a step-parent, even from their end. Initially, I tried really hard to get along with my stepmom, Amy, but she would not stop being a ducking jerk. I eventually stopped taking her crap, and that's when a cold war ensued between us. She'd constantly try to bring me down, and I would retaliate. This led to a pattern where things were always bitter between us. Despite having so many differences, we would act like we were close in front of my dad. She'd do it because she didn't want him to leave her for the sake of his child, and I would do it because I didn't want to cause my dad any trouble. We had different reasonings, but we had a mutual understanding. Unsaid, well, that was, that we would not let our differences show in public. Having said that, things have taken quite a turn lately. My dad has been unwell for the past few years and has been on his deathbed for a while, and I've been trying my best to take care of him. After my mom and my dad separated, he married Amy. Amy's always tried to keep me away from my dad and ruin my image in front of him. After I did go ahead to complete my graduation, she tried to cut off my wings so I could take care of my dad, but she refused to do anything for him. When she thought that my father would pass away, she tried to get me kicked out of the house so she could make him leave me out of his will. Things turned around when I discovered a shocking truth about her, however, which made me tell my father the truth I've hidden from him about how she treated me throughout the years. My dad passed away shortly after, but to Amy's surprise, she did not get what she had been waiting for all this time. Let me start from the beginning to put this into perspective. My mom and dad were both workaholics in their early 20s. Both of them were extremely attracted to each other because of their ambition, and they got along well. They didn't spend much time together as a couple, as they were drowning in their work. It all changed when mom got knocked up with me, and then after I was born, my dad wanted my mom to spend more time with me and him. My mom tried because she loved us a lot, but she couldn't do it. She had so many damn responsibilities at work. She would travel a lot, come home late, and I would hardly get to see my mother. Dad, however, let go some work and lightened the burden on him just to spend time with me. He wasn't growing as fast as he should have, but being with his family meant more to him than his career at the time. Eventually, my dad's expectations and my mom's inability to meet them grew into differences between them. They didn't argue. They were extremely loving and caring towards each other. They would often talk about their problems and find solutions, and they never really found a solution to the fact that my mom wasn't willing to put her career aside to spend time with him. So they concluded that they would split up. My mom never remarried and just had casual interest. She loved my dad, but knows that she can't give him what he wants and deserves, and I just stayed with my father because my mom had to travel all the time. When my parents finally split up, I was 9 years old. When I was 12, my dad married Amy. My dad thought that she would be fit for him because she wasn't very ambitious like my mom was. Amy just wanted to marry the rich and settle down. She had an average job in a call center and would date rich men to fulfill her needs. Amy was literally trained to be sweet and soft-spoken, and my dad knew her for a year before they got married, and he found her to be a suitable wife. She was very nice to me before they got married, and at the time, I was really a girly girl. We would go shopping together, do our makeup, and go to the salon together. Amy's younger than my real mom, and I liked spending time with her because the teenager in me thought she was pretty cool. My mom came to my dad's and Amy's wedding because they were still pretty great friends, right? When my mom congratulated the newlywed Amy, she pulled my mother aside and told her never to show her face to my father again. My mom left the wedding crying because they still had feelings for each other even though they had their differences, and she decided she would not meet my dad anymore. My mom and dad agreed that I would get to spend time with mom whenever we wanted, as long as it wasn't affecting my school, of course, and I would mostly spend the holidays with her. After my dad and Amy got married, it did not take long for Amy to change. She turned from being my bestie to being an evil stepmother. I wasn't even allowed to enter my dad's bedroom to talk to him. She felt insecure because I was a priority for my father and she simply was not. Well, furthermore, she had to give her cat away because I was allergic, and man was she mad about the fact that she had to give her cat away. So she told me that she would make my life a living hell when my dad was not around. At the time, I thought Amy said all those things in just a fit of rage, but it turns out she stood by her words. She held a grudge and turned my life into absolute hell. She starts playing dirty and would do just petty things to irk me. She killed my pet fish by mixing something in the water. The vet said the chlorine levels in my tank were too high and it literally killed my fish. She didn't admit to it, but I knew that she was the one who did it. After my parents' divorce, my dad hired a caretaker, Miss Brown. Amy fired my caretaker and told Dad that she'd been stealing from us. She then hired a house manager, Brenda, and convinced my father I did not need a caretaker and I would simply be better off without one. My dad decided it's time I learned to be independent and do my own chores. Miss Brown used to take care of everything for me, my laundry, my food, she did my hair even. Brenda was specifically instructed by Amy not to do my chores. I didn't even take lunch to school and instead had to eat school lunches. Amy kept playing sick pranks and tried to influence my dad against me. She would constantly create misunderstandings and try to tell him that I was slowly becoming spoiled. She pretended she cared about me and tried to restrict me on the pretext that she was turning me into a better adult. She showed my dad that she really cared about him and me, but all of it was fake. My dad thought he finally found a good partner for him who wanted to spend time with him and take care of him. Amy pretended to be loving in front of him, and I didn't say anything to my dad because I was scared he would not believe me. My dad believed everything Amy said and trusted her, and I tried to stay quiet for the longest time, but I simply could not do it for so long. We began a war against each other, and we were constantly trying to bring each other down. Amy would spend all her time with her friends, shopping, partying, gossiping, and she molded herself and completely changed her personality to fit into the rich trophy wife role. She loved her new lifestyle and would spend my dad's money lavishly to live her dream. To live that luxurious life. She spent a huge amount of money to redecorate our house. She made sure that I was deprived of any of these luxuries. Luckily, my mom got me everything I wanted from her trips. She got me shoes, bags, clothes, perfume, all the luxury brands, of course, that I could not pronounce. Amy started getting jealous because my dad would never let Amy buy them. My dad was saving up for my education, and my mom and dad had agreed that they would pay for my education. My dad was falling short because of Amy's overspending. My dad also wanted to invest in real estate and tried to save as much as he possibly could. My dad dreamt of retiring early, making money off of all his investments, and Amy made sure that I did not spend as much time with my dad and made it look like I wasn't interested in talking to him. We grew even more distant when I went to medical school to pursue my graduation. I wasn't very burdened because my parents paid for almost everything. In my free time, I would volunteer to help the needy. I would arrange food drives and spend time helping out the old-aged homes. And in my second year of university, my dad suffered kidney failure after complications because of his diabetes. My dad recovered quite well after having his kidney removed, and I spent the holidays with Mother and did not see much of my dad during my graduation, except for the time that he was in the hospital. I went home after a long time when I did graduate. A couple of weeks after I went home, my dad got extremely ill. He developed very low immunity, lost a lot of weight, and would catch a bug often. I decided to take care of my dad while I was there and just hope that he would eventually get better. I wanted to move to the city for my residency, and Dad was thrilled. But Amy called me selfish witch for leaving my dad alone. She said that I was simply capable of taking care of him and I should not leave him. I offered to get my dad a nurse for his needs because he could not afford it anymore, but Amy didn't want that. I eventually gave in and decided to stay. I did. I had to do my residency at the hospital nearby, and it wasn't what I wanted, but it wasn't that bad either. I had to be out the whole day and sometimes at night too. Amy refused to stay with my dad while I was out, and my dad needed to take medicine. But Amy did not want to help out at all. She wanted to spend the whole day out with her friends, and Brenda agreed to help out and made sure my father got his food and medicine on time. I was growing closer to my father, and we were making up for all the years that we did not bond. One day, my dad was in extreme pain. We rushed him to the hospital. The doctor told us that my dad's other kidney had failed, and he would need a donor to survive. We tried very hard to find a match for him, but we simply could not. My dad had to be dependent on dialysis just to survive, and I made a setup for him at home, hired a nurse, and personally tended to all of his needs. I told him to hang in there until we found a donor for him. Amy, on the other hand, continued her ways of going out with her friends, partying, shopping, and their group of friends was disgusting. They would all joke about their husbands and complain about how boring their marriages were, then proceed to just be excited about young men. I could not believe that doesn't count as cheating. Days passed, but we could not find a donor for my father. The doctor who was treating him told us that he only had days left to live. I was getting desperate. Something inside Amy changed when the doctor announced that he was going to die. She kept telling me I could not take care of him well, and that's why he's so sick. I told her she wasn't really doing much and was always out with her friends. When her friends came home once, I overheard her telling them that the only reason I was there was because she wanted me to take care of Dad, and she didn't want to be burdened with taking care of her sick husband. I told Amy not to cause any trouble for me or my father, and Amy continued to try to get rid of me. I had already guessed her intention. She wanted to kick me out and make sure I didn't inherit anything. I just hoped that what I thought about her wasn't true. I wasn't really dying for the money, but I wasn't going to lose some ungrateful jerk and let her just take all the money and spend it on trash. I decided to talk to my dad and expose Amy's true colors and how she does not care about him. I stayed quiet for all these years just for the sake of him being happy. I've always come to first to him, and I wanted him to have a happy marriage where his wife is available for him. I decided that I would tell him absolutely everything. As I walked into his bedroom, he screamed at me and asked, "Jane, what is the meaning of this?" Well, I was confused. Amy was standing beside his bed trying to conceal her laughter under her rather shocked face. Amy held up a phone and gave it to me. She showed me pictures of me in bed with different men. I was shocked. I was confused. There was also text to people discussing how much I would charge to sleep with them. I told my dad that's not real. Amy asked me whether it was the best excuse I had, and Amy told my dad that I was secretly an escort and that I was doing it on purpose to humiliate my father because he divorced his mom. I screamed, "This isn't true!" But Amy had already convinced my dad. She told my father that she thought it was fake too, and she had the images checked by a professional to see whether they were real or not. My dad trusted Amy and banished me from the house. I left the house with all my luggage and stayed at a friend's house for the night. I was going to call my mom the next day to ask her to come pick me up, but I got a call from Miss Brown unexpectedly. She asked me to meet her. Miss Brown told me that she had heard everything that happened from my neighbors, and she told me that she had to tell me something important. Miss Brown had found out that Amy was pregnant. Was somebody else's child before the marriage? But Amy begged her to stay quiet for my and my dad's sake, and she promised Miss Brown that she had been a good mother to me and a good husband to my dad. Miss Brown saw how her behavior changed after the wedding and wanted to tell my dad the truth about her infidelity. When Amy suspected Miss Brown, she immediately fired her and gave money to Miss Brown's daughter just to make her stay quiet about it. Miss Brown and her daughter immediately moved out of town on her daughter's insistence, but now Miss Brown has moved back into her old house after her daughter got married. I thanked Miss Brown for the valuable piece of information she gave me, but told her I didn't have much evidence to go about. Miss Brown revealed that she knew whose child it was, and that's how she found out the child is not my father's. See, Amy had slept with my dad's uncle. Yeah, my great-uncle Harry, who at the time was younger than now. Amy met Harry at a party where my dad introduced Amy to my family as I remember it. I don't honestly know whether they knew each other before, but this was sick on so many levels. I was disgusted when I found out the truth, and Miss Brown did the wrong thing by hiding it. But I know that my dad could not have stood the humiliation at the time. I knew my dad would not believe me, so I paid Harry a little visit to get things out of him. Well, when I got there, my rage caused me to ask him whether he slept with Amy or not. Harry did not even take a single moment or did not hesitate at all to tell me that he did so. He told me that he recognized Amy from an adult party where they did things I will not specify here. Amy offered to sleep with Harry so that he would not tell anyone, and she slept with him multiple times. When I told Harry that Amy was pregnant, he was surprised and told me he did not know a thing. He hadn't really been close in touch, but he knew that Dad was sick. I made a request that he tell my dad the truth because I wanted to spend time with him before he died. Harry agreed to tell my dad the truth because he thought whatever Amy did to me was out of line and she needed to be taught a lesson. Harry and I went home, making sure Amy wasn't home because I knew that she would pull something. Harry told my dad the entire truth, and I told him everything I went through during my teenage years. I managed to convince my dad, who previously did not want to hear a word that I was saying, that the pictures were fake. Dad regretted that he did not know sooner, and he apologized for misunderstanding me and kicking me out. He felt so bad he was actually in tears, and Dad realized Amy's true intentions and told me that it was important for him to speak to Bob, who, by the way, was a lawyer. I was desperate to find a donor. I was delighted the day we found a match for my father. A poor guy died in a car crash, and his kidneys were a perfect match. Well, we had to run some testing to make sure my dad's body accepted the kidney, of course. I was over the moon. It was all in vain because unfortunately my father unexpectedly passed away the same day. It was all too much for me to bear, and we had the funeral, where everyone came and paid their respects to my father. My mom showed up too, and she apologized to Dad for not coming sooner and whispered near the coffin that she did not know that he'd leave so soon. It was all very emotional, and my mom was in tears. Amy acted extremely normal and did not have an ounce of grief in her until the funeral. She started screaming and crying very loudly, and she shouted at me and said that she thought that I would save my father. She blamed me for his death, and everybody was consoling her. I could not believe she was putting on an act for the funeral, and her insensitivity towards my feelings hurt me and angered me. Amy told me not to come home because I had no reason to. I didn't go there anyways because I didn't want to see that woman's face after everything she did. My mom stayed with me for a couple days to make sure I was okay after my father died. She told me that she would love it if I moved in with her. I told her I would need some time to think about it, and I wanted to do my residency in the big city, but I already had things going on where I was. About 2 weeks after my father's death, Bob called the whole family, including my mom. He wanted to read out Dad's will to everyone. My dad had made me the main beneficiary of the trust fund. My dad's brother got some of his money, and all the family heirlooms went straight to my mother. Amy was so shocked to find that she got nothing. To avoid any misunderstandings, my father specified in his will that his spouse Amy would receive absolutely nothing. Amy accused me of cheating her of her share by influencing my father and spreading lies about her. Harry had honestly told the whole family about Amy's cheating ways and that she was always treating me badly. Everyone sided with me and told her to leave and that she didn't deserve anything. I gave Amy 2 hours to take her crap and leave, or else I would have to force her out. I told Mom I was going to be staying alone at my father's house because I needed to take care of everything that he had left me. It was a huge responsibility, and I wanted to make him proud. My dad left me a letter explaining everything he wanted me to do after his death. Amy moved into her old bachelor's apartment after she moved out of my dad's lavish house that she had personally redecorated to her own needs. Now she's got to make a living for herself because her greediness got the best of her, and I learned a valuable lesson that you need to identify the people who are with you for their personal gains. They'll use you to fulfill the needs but won't be there when you need them the most. Amy just wanted all the benefits of being my dad's wife, but did not want to be dutiful towards him or even give him the love he needed. Everything about her was fake, but my father failed to identify it. He lived a good life, but I had burst his bubble about Amy towards the end of it. Whatever happened was for the best, because Amy needed to learn her lesson, and that greedy witch did not deserve a single penny. Update number 1. I'm writing another update on my story because this was needed. I'm really overwhelmed by the response, and I'm glad to see that so many people are showering me with love and giving me condolences. It feels like I'm being heard. I want to be really honest about just one thing. My mom and my late father mean the world to me. I love them a lot, but they've never made me feel seen or even heard. Well, I don't even remember talking to anyone about my issues and them sitting down with me and giving me solutions. I've always been scared of letting people know how I feel. I only wrote this story because my father passed away and I knew it would never get to him. If my dad were still here, I would have never written all this down. I just like to add that I feel so good and I feel like all the people in the comments are listening to me. This has been good for me because a stranger's opinion won't hurt me as much as my loved ones or friends, telling me that my problem isn't big enough and that I should just be grateful for the love that I live. Sometimes money isn't everything, and if it were, then my parents would still have been together. A lot of you are probably wondering what happened next because we all know Amy, being Amy, will retaliate. I expected her to do something and I just didn't know what would happen. Firstly, Amy went to Harry's house, gave him an earful, and threatened him by accusing him of, assault, and getting her pregnant all those years ago. Harry's very old, but he's also very smart. His house had CCTV surveillance with voice recording, of course, and he recorded everything. The way she barged into his house, proceeded to scream at him and even threaten him. When Harry revealed her tricks would not work on him because he had a camera on her, she repeated what happened before the wedding and offered to sleep with him again. I have the footage and I was extremely disgusted when I saw it. Harry told her to leave and never come back to his house again if she did not want to go to jail. She came with the intention of getting some money out of Harry, but was defeated because of her straight-up stupidity. Amy got herself a job at a retail store, but she obviously was not happy. She kept spreading lies and rumors about me and arriving at my workplace to cause a bit of commotion. She demanded I give her a share of my father's wealth and claimed to everyone that I cheated her out of it. She's been going around telling everyone that she loved my father a lot and gave her years of her life to him, only to be kicked out of her home by evil old me. A lot of people even believed her, and I got a lot of calls from people telling me that I was a bad person. I didn't let it bother me, at all. The fact that she brought it all to my workplace affected me, but the guys at the hospital were very supportive, and they knew how much my dad meant to me. I got letters at my doorstep from anonymous people saying that they had my private pictures and that they were going to leak them online. I got really scared, but I've never really sent intimate pictures to anyone, and the demand was a huge sum of money in cash. I paid no heed to it and thought it was a silly prank because of how badly executed it was. The next day, I woke up to find that my naked pictures were online on social media platforms and had been shared by multiple anonymous accounts. These were the same pictures that were morphed by Amy, and I realized at that point that it was Amy who leaked my pictures online. I asked a friend for help and he found the real video that my face was morphed from. He spread them to everyone to tell the people that the video was fake. I contacted the police and took them down. They traced the IP back to Amy and the cops took custody of her. My friends tried their best to tell people online that the videos were fake, and I was really upset and affected by the comments I got. They were lewd, vicious, and I was also shamed by some people for letting the pictures come out. The whole thing was horrible for me, and I regret not acting sooner. I was extremely angry, so I posted the video of her threatening Harry online, so people could see how she really was. Update number 2. Hey, it's Jane again. I'm here with another update on Amy. This one will absolutely blow your mind. When Amy was in jail, her friend circle really posted a lot of hateful crap about me. They made a narrative that I was a bad person for influencing my father and having Amy straight up kicked out of the will. They all portrayed Amy as a good person who has just cared for her family, but I never accepted her as a parent. They posted old pictures of us as a family and tried to convince people how happy we all were, and portrayed them that I was just jealous because I wanted my real mom to get back together with my dad. Everyone in my family tried to get back at them and told people it was not true, and they're just saying that because they're her friends. It had become a social media war between her friends and my family and friends. I was growing sick and tired of it, and the hate I got was affecting my mental health, and I just kept getting calls from people. I honestly wanted it all to end. I was willing to give her the money if she wanted because I was so unhappy. Everyone I knew told me to stay strong and not give her anything. Amy was in jail, but she still had the power because of her friends. I eventually left social media and I changed my number for a more peaceful life. The damage was done, but I felt better after not involving myself in it. And I truly am grateful for the people who stood up for me, but I could not spend my life being involved in it. I was already burdened by the responsibility my father left for me, and had to focus on my career too. I saw people dying in the hospital every day, and it all reminded me of my father's death. It was a real horrible mental state that I was in, alone. I could not understand what was happening to me. My mom tried reaching out to me, but I didn't even want to talk to anyone. I stopped working out, doing all the things that brought joy to me, as I even stopped eating. Amy's friends somehow managed to bail her out, even though the charges were proven against her. Amy had to pay a fine to me for, posting my pictures online, and I thought she would stay quiet, but she got my number and kept calling me and telling me to give her the house, and demanded a share of the rent I received every month from my dad's assets. I was tearing up because I felt at that moment that she was winning and it was all too much for me to handle. I wasn't going to let her get to me. I told her I would not give her anything. I went to work for my shift late that night, and I had a dreadful evening with several sick people with serious conditions. As a professional, I could not let it get to me, but I had an emotional outburst that evening because of a young girl praying for her father to get better. I came home extremely tired before I could go in and noticed that there were footprints towards my home. I got scared at first and thought maybe some kids were just messing about. I called the police because I was suspicious and I did not want to take any risk. My neighbor approached me and told me that this dog snuck into my house when my cleaner came home. My cleaner did not realize the dog was still in the house and left, and my neighbor heard his dog bark coming from the house, but it was too late. He apologized for his dog and requested me to let him out. I realized that the footprints were his and let my guard down. His dog often comes to my house because I give him treats and play with him, and I opened the door and the dog came out wagging his tail. He was pretty scared and hungry, so my neighbor hurried him home to give him some food and water after thanking me. I went into my home thinking everything was fine. I was startled when I turned on the light and saw Amy standing in my living room. I wanted to scream, but nobody was there. My body would not let me move out of shock. I realized that my house smelled of kerosene and was shaken to the core. Amy pushed me onto the floor and kicked my leg so I could not run. I could not move. She ran to the door and lit a piece of paper. She planned to burn the house down. I wailed for help and tried to get up, and just as she was about to drop the burning paper, the police came. Amy got distracted and the paper burned out, and I screamed for help and told the police that Amy was trying to burn down the house. The police arrested her and helped me to the hospital. My mom rushed to the hospital when she heard the news, and I told my mom everything that happened. Mom said that she would never leave me alone again and decide to stay with me. Now, I'm seeking therapy after everything that happened, and I'm trying to heal. It's going to be pretty well now, but the whole thing has left a pretty big impact in my life, and I would like to end this by saying thank you to everybody who read and commented on my post. Thank you for all the love you've given me. I hope to forget everything and start my life again. So, this Amy person might be one of the craziest people we've read about all week. I mean, just ignore the fact that she tried to sabotage OP from the beginning, but then she goes to jail, gets bailed out, goes back to OP's house, and literally tries to burn it down. I mean, come on, how ridiculous was that? I want to know what you guys think, and say, for instance, you were in OP's position. What would you have done about it? Let's discuss it in our comment section right down below, guys. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories and animate stories just like today, every day. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button somewhere like right down here. And don't forget to click the bell notifications, that way YouTube lets you know whenever a new story is available. I hope you guys have a great day, I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.